Bethel Church family, it's Wednesday afternoon, and even though we've been back in the building worshiping together for the last few weeks, I wanted to continue to bring a midweek encouragement. I was doing both Wednesday and Friday, but we've moved to just Wednesday encouragements. If you're still not comfortable worshiping in the church building with us, we're doing everything we can to continue streaming our services for both services. And let me just encourage you. I know that the video hasn't been awesome. The audio has been kind of loud and too quiet at times, but we are in the process of making some improvements to make sure that right now and in the future, if you're not able to join us for worship services in person, you can join us on YouTube and on Facebook, and then you'll be able to watch the service later as well. And so please continue, if you're not comfortable being in the building, continue to worship with us online, and I'm hoping within the next 3 to 4 weeks you'll even start to see some improvements in that front. You know, as I thought about the midweek encouragement this week, I was reminded that many people are struggling right now with how to process all of the challenges that we're facing. People are struggling with how to process returning to normal after the COVID-19 lockdown. People are struggling, we talked about briefly on Sunday, with wondering where God is in the midst of all of the chaos that this country is going through, in the midst of so much division. And what I was reminded of is the words from the prophet Jeremiah. Maybe you're not familiar so much with exactly what Jeremiah says, but you are familiar with the concept. Let me just read to you a couple of verses from Jeremiah chapter 18. Beginning in verse 1, God tells Jeremiah, hey, get up. Actually, God comes to Jeremiah and he says to him in verse 2, arise. Go to the potter's house, and there I will let you hear my words. So I went down to the potter's house, and there he was working at his wheel. And the vessel he was making of clay was spoiled in the potter's hand. Maybe today you feel a little bit like that. You know, you recognize that God is working in your life, but maybe today you just feel like that lump of clay. That the potter was molding and things were looking just fine, and then all of a sudden it became just a pile of mud. I spoke a few months ago about watching junior hires at camp making pottery. They were throwing pottery and they were making beautiful vases and big containers, and as they worked those, just one little slip of the thumb and suddenly what had been this incredible vase for mom became a pile of mud, and a whole lot of ashtrays were made at junior high camp, and most parents don't even smoke anymore. Sometimes we feel like that. And so as Jeremiah is there watching the potter, he sees the pile of clay spoiled in the potter's hand. But it continues, and he reworked it into another vessel as it seemed good to the potter to do. Verse 5, then the word of the Lord came to me. O house of Israel, can I not do with you as this potter has done, declares the Lord? Behold, like the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand. You know, we may look at this and we may see it as a mess. We may see things and just wonder, where is God in all of this? And yet God says, I am able to take what you see as a mess and form it into something beautiful as I see fit. A beautiful vessel, a jar, a container. You know, we have a cupboard that has a whole bunch of plasticware, Tupperware, and whatnot. But it always seems like we have the wrong lids to go with the containers. We've got round containers and square lids, or square containers and round lids. And we can never seem to keep them all together, and those containers almost become throwaway items. You know, maybe they get left to sit a little too long in the fridge and they get a little funky, and you look at it and you think, this is kind of disposable and I can throw it away. As God is sharing in the Old Testament and New Testament with the nation of Israel, with Jeremiah, what he's talking about is these jars of clay that are not just throwaway items. everything would have been kept in a jar of clay of some sort. Your water, your wine, your grain, everything would have been stored. And they're incredibly important, and each one has a purpose. Each one has a value. God has a purpose. God has a value for you. Let me encourage you. As we see the unrest that is happening in our country right now, as we see the division that is happening, we may be wondering and trying to figure out what our place in all of this is. Can I tell you, our place is to love. God said that they'll know that we are Christians by our love. He called us to love. He called us to love across all lines. He was very clear in that when he taught on the Good Samaritan, that our neighbor, those we're called to love, don't necessarily look like us. The ones we're called to love don't always act like us. They don't come from the same socioeconomic background. They don't come from the same religious background even, and yet we are called to love. Every single person that we come in contact with is a soul destined for heaven or hell. I had a great conversation. Actually, Heidi engaged it with our kids this past week. If you knew you were dying, how would that change how you live? And the kids talked about some of the things that they might do. And then Heidi reminded them, what if the world was coming to an end? How would you respond to those people around you that are a soul destined for heaven or hell? You have the opportunity to love. That is what we're called to do. We're called to love and to share the love of Christ with the people around us. God said the two greatest commands are to love your neighbor and love God. Let's work on loving God and loving others. I hope that this midweek encouragement finds you doing well. Again, we'll continue to meet in the church as well as online at 8:30 and 10:45 on Sunday mornings. And hopefully, as you feel more comfortable, you'll join us in the church building. But we're doing everything we can to make sure that we have a good worship experience, both in person and online. I know it's been kind of rough online the last couple weeks as we're learning some of the kinks to work out here at the church building, but rest assured we're also in the process of making sure we have the correct equipment to be able to broadcast, to livecast our worship services on Sunday morning, both at 8:30 and at 10:45. So bear with us a couple weeks more as we get some of this worked out and as we hopefully get a better worship experience, so that whether you're home now from this current situation or in the future because you're sick or the kids are sick or maybe you're even on vacation and you want to tune in from the hotel on Sunday morning, we're going to make sure that you're going to be able to do that. I hope that you're doing well. Remember, no Sunday school, no junior church and children's church this Sunday. And we're going to continue that through the month of June and begin to evaluate beginning in July. Hey, have a great week, and we'll see you Sunday.